So today we're going to study about observational research method. Observational research is a method used in psychology to observe and record behavior in a natural setting without manipulating any variables. This method can be conducted in a laboratory or in the field. Now we're going to discuss types of observation. There are introspective method and then there is extrospective method. Introspection is the examination or observation of one's own mental and emotional processes. Through introspection we can gain knowledge about our inner workings. Often when we sit alone and we try to focus on our own thoughts and feelings, or we try to discuss them with a counselor, at that time we observe introspective method. In extrospective method we observe physical or external activities of an individual's behavior objectively without involving an observer's personal opinion. When we are observing extrospective method, we try to think about, or we make our thoughts, or we try to comment on the things outside a person's individual body. We think on any other object outside the person's body, and that's, we can say that it is a third person view or a third person perspective. Now when we talk about observational research method characteristics, it must be systematic. There must be a specific system or method used while observing observational method, and it must be specific. What we want to observe, we must be specific about that. We must look upon that, and we should not consider any other thing without other than the thing we want to discuss or we want to observe. It must be objective. It shouldn't be subjective. Our own thoughts, our own beliefs should not be indulged in our observation. It must be recorded immediately, because if it wouldn't be recorded immediately, there can be some sort of corruption in that observation. We can forget anything, or it cannot be accurate, and it should be verifiable. The observation we are conducting, it can be verified if any other observer tried to conduct the same observation. And observations consisted of both physical and mental activities. During observation, various behaviors and cues will be cited, but focus will be only given to that data that is pertinent to the given study. As I told before, that it must be specific. We should focus on the thing that we want to study, and it must be purposive and not casual. We shouldn't sit and say, let's do an observational research method. We must have a purpose on doing that, what you want to do. Now, what is the purposes? Why do we conduct observational research method? The first one is that it helps us to it enables the researcher to gather empirical data which was difficult to obtain by other means, and it enables researcher to gather sufficient data to supplement or verify information gathered by other means, gathered by other experiments or by other research methods. And it enabled the researcher to gather information or data needed to describe the aspects of variable being studied which can't be described accurately without observation. And lastly, it enabled researcher to gather directly data primarily for his study for more accurate description and interpretation. Now, what is structured observation? Structured observation involves observing behavior in a systematic and structured way. In structured observation, researchers determine in advance the behaviors they want to observe and record them systematically. This method is useful when the researchers have specific behaviors they want to observe, and they can be recorded in a standardized way. For example, let's take event sampling. What you do in event sampling, that the observer records the occurrence of a specific behavior every time it happens. For example, an observer might record every time a child hits another child in a classroom. And then other example of structured observation is time sampling. In time sampling, the observer records the occurrence of a specific behavior during a predetermined interval of time. For example, an observer might record how many times a child is not on task during a 10-minute observation period. Then there is an unstructured observation. Unstructured observation involves observing behavior in a natural setting without any predetermined structure or plan. This method is useful when the researchers want to gain a general understanding of behavior in a particular setting. And the examples are that when we want to have field note, And what we do that the observer records their observation in a narrative format without any specific structure plan, and this method is useful when the researchers want to gain a general understanding of the behavior in a particular setting. And other example of unstructured observation is free-flowing observation. And in free-flowing observation, the observer records their observation without any predetermined structural plan. This method is useful when the researchers want to be flexible in their observation and record any behavior that is of interest. Now comes naturalistic observation. Naturalistic observation involves observing behavior in a natural setting without interfering or influencing it in any way. This method is often used to study behavior that cannot be manipulated or controlled, such as social interactions, language development, or animal behavior. For example, if we are for example, watching a child's interaction with their peers on a playground or observing animal behavior in their natural habitat. In both of these examples, it will be like we will be just sitting casually and will try to observe the child or animal's behavior without interfering, so that we can get a pure and accurate observation. Next is unobtrusive observation. Unobtrusive observation involves observing behavior without the knowledge or consent of the participants. This method is useful when the researchers want to avoid the observer effect, which is when the presence of the observer influences the behavior of the participants. For example, that if an observer wants to study the amount of litter in a park by counting the number of cigarettes, birds, or food wrappers left behind. Or another example is that if we want to study the popularity of a particular product by analyzing sales data. Then there is disguised observation. Disguised observation involves observing behavior without the knowledge of the participants, but the observer is hidden or disguised. This method is useful when the behavior being observed may change if the participants know they are being observed. For example, studying customer service in a store by having a researcher act as a customer and observe the behavior of the employees. And another example is studying the behavior of drivers at the busy intersection by disguising the observer as a construction worker or a panhandler. Now next is participant observation. Participant observation involves the observer becoming a part of the group being observed and participating in their activities while observing their behavior. This method is often used to study behavior in small groups or communities such as cults or gangs. For example, studying the behavior of a particular religious group by attending their meetings and participating in their activities, or also study the behavior of a particular community by living with them and participating in their daily activities. Then there is non-participant observation. In this method, the observer stands apart and doesn't participate in the phenomena of being observed. Naturally, there is no emotional involvement on part of observer. It requires skills in terms of recording observation in unnoticed manner. Now then there are types of participant and non-participant observation. There is overt observation and covert observation. In overt observation, the participants are aware that they are being observed by a researcher who is also participating in the activities being observed. Same, if we study the examples that we have studied in non-participant observation, we can study them here, like participating in a religious group or in a religious meeting or in a community. People there will know that okay, this person is observing us, but they won't change their religious practices or what they usually do in a community. Then there is covert observation. In this type of observation, the participants are not aware that they are being observed by a researcher who is also participating in the activities being observed. And the examples is that studying the behavior of drivers at the busy intersection by disguising the observer as construction worker or panhandler, and studying the customer service in a store by having a researcher act as a customer and observe the behavior of the employees. And these examples we have studied before. Now there are that participant observation can be conducted in several ways depending on the level of participation of the observer. Number one is complete participant observation. In this type of participant observation, the observer becomes a full member of the group being studied and fully participates in their activities. The observer is not known as a researcher and their true identity is kept hidden. This method is useful when studying groups that are difficult to assess or observe, such as gangs or criminal organizations. Then there is observer as participant. In this type of participant observation, the observer takes part in the activities of the group being studied, but their role as a researcher is known. The observer may participate in some activities but may also step back and observe from a distance. This method is useful when the researcher wants to gain a more in-depth understanding of the group's behavior and interactions. Last is participant as observer. In this type of participant observation, the observer is a member of the group being studied, but their primary role is that of an observer. They may participate in some activities, but their primary focus is on observing the group's behavior and interactions. This method is useful when the researcher wants to gain a better understanding of the group behavior while still maintaining some distance. So thank you for watching, and please like, comment, subscribe and share this video.